A new report by the Mapungubwe Institute for Strategic Reflection reveals that government has not improved under the Government of National Unity. It also revealed that Mpumalanga and the Free State provinces could slip out of the ANC's control after the 2029 elections. Let's get some detail now on this barometer, which also covers local and provincial coalitions. We're joined now by the primary author of the report, Professor Booysen. Prof, good evening to you. Thank you for your time. Let's start with the influence, at least that's what I understand the report, at least the parts I've read, to be saying that the influence of coalitions at local government level have now found their way up in the Government of National Unity. Did I read the report correctly? And if so, what's the impact?
Yes, certainly. That is one of the inferences that we draw from this. And I take a perspective, historical perspective, on the learning that different levels of government have been accumulating over the years from what's been transpiring at other levels. And yes, local government in the last 2 terms since 2016 have been increasing the numbers of coalition governments, and wherever they have been learning from, I think the national coalition has been taking a few lessons from them as well, especially in the sense that we have seen so many tiny, small parties, microscopic parties, that only barely won 1 or 2 seats in the local government elections, being serial kingmakers, switching to and fro between different coalitions and perfecting that role of kingmaking. Yeah. And we see that definitely happening at national level. We saw that at the time of the budget and the crisis with the DA not supporting the budget a few months ago, how the ANC could go out and shop beyond the GNU, get additional partners, and just barely mustered a majority. But they did muster a majority there. And that is the type of practice that has really been rife at local government level. And so these learning cycles continue. And yes, governance, you mentioned the issue of governance, that is so important too. At local government level, we have definitely been seeing, and there's concrete empirical research shows that how little improvement, if at any, despite little things happening all over, but overall, very little improvement happens in governance at a local level, and hugely under-resourced local governments. Very often, there are star exceptions, but very often they don't have the capacity, they don't have the skills. Income grants are being spent on salaries, and there are problems, difficulties to get rid of underperforming staff. That is the story of local government. Yeah. And yes, in coalition style, we can see that politically those coalitions have calmed down quite a bit. Fewer changes in the period of the Ministerial Coalitions Barometer 2, that's 2023 to 25, than there had been in the period of Coalitions Barometer 1, 21 to 23. But still, and that is quite disconcerting. Despite the calming, we now see the substance of poor governance below there. And we also see that it's not just coalition governments that perform poorly. It is an endemic phenomenon across local government.
Yeah. If governance has not improved, Professor Booysen, I'm still at local government level. We have an election coming up next year, and we are told more and more by people like yourselves that coalitions are here to stay. Is there any hope of improvement, therefore?
One has to be optimistic and say, yes, there must be hope. But I do not see it in the concrete details that this empirical research has delivered. One can only hope that there can be better leadership, better accountability, better determination and political will. We hear these concepts so frequently, it's almost cliche to use them, but these are the characteristics that are so lacking at local government level to make things better. And an exacerbation comes in through the fact that there's been, in many cases, such frequent turnovers of coalitions or chops and changes to coalitions. Maybe the basic coalition stays in place, but there had been one or two little parties that deserted and one or two others or an independent that came in. And it becomes very difficult to determine exactly who is responsible, which party actually has to be accountable.
Yeah.
We even see it, or especially see it in our big metros in Gauteng. So many different variations of coalitions and turnovers over the years, and who is actually responsible, and everybody always, almost seemingly with good reason, because there have been so many turnovers, but can blame another party, another coalition who have actually originated the problems.
A headline grabber coming out of this barometer, Professor Booysen, is the suggestion that Mpumalanga and the Free State provinces could potentially slip away from the ANC. Question is, how many provinces are likely to remain under the ANC come the 2029 elections, and how deep will the chaos go then, or run, if that becomes the case?
Yes, Molly, that's a fascinating question. I never imagined that that observation would cause so much havoc and so much worry also in the provinces. That yes, Mpumalanga and the Free State are these two provinces that currently sit on the basis of last year's election results on 52, 51%. And a simple analysis of the election result trends of the ANC over South Africa, Democratic South Africa's elections, show that since 2004 and in 2 or 3 provinces, I think 2 provinces only 2009, there were peaks in support, and those provinces have not returned better results for the ANC at all. And there were relatively big dips in some provinces, these 2 included, in the last election. And should that trend continue, downward trend, and carry up to now, we don't see anything that suggests that it will not be continuing, those 2 provinces could definitely also slip out of ANC control. So ANC control, ANC may still very well be the biggest party. And then the other part of your question, which provinces would then remain?
Yeah.
It seems the 2 bastions of the ANC would then be the Eastern Cape and Limpopo, and still relatively high, 60 Limpopo to 70% still. And that would be fascinating. And even today, I got several reports from provinces that people reminded me that, yes, cooperative governance between the provinces, but maybe these provinces should be asserting themselves more strongly and do more. And ANC provinces now look at the Western Cape, I believe, as an example for what can be done in the ambit of within the confines of cooperative governance as defined in the Constitution, and looking at where they could do more, and should a GNU government become stronger, less favored, tilted, I could say, in direction of the ANC, should the DA or other parties, which ANC in the provinces does not like, become more assertive at national level, how they could then go about to retain more power. And there's almost a movement, one can observe, of ANC people in provincial governments trying to assert that GNU at the national level, GNU does not mean there must be GNU in the provinces. If they remain ANC, they can still make themselves heard. Well, I can only say it's about time they do.
Professor Susan Booysen, very, very interesting report indeed. Thank you very much for your time. She is the author, the primary author of this barometer